Afternoon all. I hope we're doing well. Let's jump straight into it. I'm getting this out a day and a half early, so you're going to have plenty of time to digest all the data and plan your moves for the Friday deadline. Looking at the round of 16, I got 72 points, which is not a great score, below par. I was 1k and now I've dropped down to outside 6k. Obviously, we've just had 4 match days, and everybody is quite sort of bunched up together in the rankings. If you play FPL and you think about your rank after four game weeks in FPL, it's quite normal to be, have a horrendous rank, be like 1 million, something like that. It does take quite a few game weeks for things to average out and the better fantasy managers to rise up the rankings and the not so good ones to fall down the rankings. So we've only had 4 match days, 3 still to go. So just over halfway. Looking at the scores, so I got 72, and the crown, I think that's the best score in the league, is some team. Not too sure who that is, but they had the same team. Well, very similar team. There's only one change to the team I suggested if for people who have already used their wildcards. So this is the team that I suggested before the previous deadline to go with if you have already used your wildcard. There's only one change. They've got Carvajal instead of Cucurella. So if I compare that to my team, just to give you a sort of an idea, so it says there we've got 12 players in common, and the differences are, so they had Gakpo, I had Mbappe, they had Jude, I had Sabitzer, and they had Stefan de Vrij at the back, and I had 2 Spain defenders, Carvajal and Cucurella. They've just got Carvajal. So those 3 players, we've got a difference of 14 points there. So it just shows you the sort of small margins to gain ground. You don't need to have a massively different team. You just need a handful of players, 3 players in this case, to gain a lot of ground. As I'm 6k and 14 points. They'll be inside the top 1k. So don't get too disheartened. Plenty of time. So hopefully you get a bit of luck. Because personally, I didn't have any luck. Go back to my team with the captaincy. So I had Gundo, 3 points. Obviously had a twist. I went to Harry Kane, 6 points. Looking at the scores distribution, it was in my favour. The odds were in my favour to twist. Who did I go after that? Oh yeah, Ronaldo. How could I forget? Oh my word. Yep, one for the ages that game, and then finally I went for Van Dijk, and thankfully he got a clean sheet. 7 points. Decent. Because in this match day coming up, so if I go to my team, we've only got 2 days. So you need to be a bit more conservative with the captaincy. You don't have 4 bites at the cherry, 4 game days. It's just a 2. So I'm going to captain Mbappe on the first day, and then the safe play is Van Dijk again on the second day, on Saturday. I mentioned a couple of minutes ago about choosing the right players. Another thing that sort of goes under the radar, isn't it, really appreciated, is not choosing the wrong players. So because I'll just put it over here. So because I chose my team, I made decisions where I wanted nailed players who weren't on a yellow card, with the exceptions being Ronaldo, Mbappe, and Carvajal. I think, yep, he's on a yellow card. And also players who likely to qualify. So as it stands now, I haven't got any players who are suspended, and I've just got Sabitzer, who was eliminated. I mentioned previously about not avoiding players on a yellow card and avoiding teams who were sort of not that favoured to qualify. I also mentioned about, I've seen quite a few teams who have got Verbruggen, the Dutch goalkeeper, and Pickford. So there you've got 2 players, 2 goalkeepers who play on the same day. So the England keeper and the Netherlands keeper. That's something else that to keep an eye on. We'll talk about the fixtures. So, in case you didn't know, Holland, keep on calling them Holland. Netherlands is just a lot more syllables. Holland got the standout fixture of the round, playing against Turkey. Turkey are, just looking at the XG, they're very fortunate, quite lucky to be in this situation. Austria had plenty of good chances. Obviously, a few of you had Baumgartner, however you say his name, that chap who missed a header late on. England have got a good fixture, as well as France, but these two teams haven't been playing that great so far. Spain and Germany is quite an evenly matched game. So obviously, if you're looking to bring it user-free transfers rather than a wild card, well, even if you are using a wild card, Holland players are ones to target, generally speaking. So let's have a look at the data. Start with the forwards, because there's just not a lot of forwards to choose from. I think there's only I would probably limit it to 4 forwards, really. Mbappe is the best captain for the first day. And then I've got Kane, going to keep him in. There's not a lot in it between Memphis and Gakpo. Memphis plays up front. He is on all set pieces. I do think he's the likely penalty taker. If Memphis isn't on the pitch, I think it'd be Van Dijk after him. Gakpo plays wide left. So just looking at the numbers, sort of Memphis shades it slightly just because of his play centrally, lightly on pens. But the other consideration is ownership. Gakpo is going to be, it's 25% at the minute compared to Memphis, who's on 4. I think that's going to be a lot higher after the deadline on Friday. Plus, you could say, eye test wise, Gakpo looks like he's in form. He looks like he's the better player. Out of the two, I'm going to go with Gakpo. Yeah, I'm going to transfer out Ronaldo. Eye test wise, obviously, he doesn't pass the test, the eye test. I don't like his matchup away to France. Happy to get him out of the team. And getting Ronaldo out of the team for Gakpo frees up a lot of money to get Jude in midfield instead of Sabitzer. So if I was on a wild card, I would probably have Gakpo and Memphis and Mbappe, and then bother with Harry Kane. But I've put those suggested teams in the tab called suggested teams, obviously. So this is the team right now. This is the sort of, if I was wildcarding, I would have this team right now to get through the rest of the tournament without it. So I've gone heavy on Netherlands, heavy on England, quite like French defence with Mbappe, and then 1 or 2 players from Spain and Germany. Let's go back to data. I've seen a few people on Twitter mentioning how, you want a captain a midfielder because midfielders get a lot more player of the match awards. Well, that's obvious. There's a lot more midfielders in the game, a lot more people classified as midfielders, and sort of slim pickings for forwards. And plus, the average goals scored per game is just way down compared to the Premier League, compared to Champions League, compared to previous European Championships and previous World Cups. Yeah, just a lot less scoring. You could speculate, well, is it because players are very tired? Or you could say, well, we've only had 4 match days. It's small sample size. I don't think I have a personal viewpoint. Another factor is the pitch, especially the pitch in Frankfurt. A few of you probably mentioned that to me on X. Yeah, pitch looked terrible, didn't it? Midfielders, Jude is a player I want to bring in. Bear in mind he's on a yellow card, so if you're trying to get through the rest of the tournament without a wild card, bear that in mind. Foden ranks highly as well, just because England have got a good fixture. He's probably the second most nailed midfielder after Jude. He has played a lot of minutes. but also he's on a yellow card as well. Saka is further down the list, and I wouldn't want to bring in Saka at all. He doesn't look like he's going to score a goal, and something crazy might happen, and Southgate may make some drastic changes, play Saka as a wing back. I think it's unlikely. I think he's just going to do one enforced change. Konza coming in for Gehi in the centre of defence. But nevertheless, whatever happens, I wouldn't bring Saka in the team. So with each game that happens, I get more information, there's more data. So it's easier to set minutes, see who's on pens, who's likely to score goals. So from the previous game, we know that Gundo is not on pens, Havertz is, and it was a bit surprising he got taken off after 60-odd minutes. I'm going to keep him in the team. Yeah, just a good price point. And there's other players that I want to sub out. Other than that, so I'm going to bring in Bellingham. Happy to keep Rodri and Fabian Ruiz. Excuse me, keeping Gundo. Sabitza's going to go out. Obviously for Bellingham and Bruno, I'll keep him in the team. Well, just looking at the scores, as I mentioned previously, lower scoring. There's not a great deal of difference in the expected scores for a lot of players. The players that you bring in, stating the obvious, you want to take out somebody who's going to get a low score for someone who's going to get a massive score. So someone like Jude, Gakpo or Memphis, or a Dutch defender. Speaking of defenders, good segue, get the defenders up there. And surprisingly, the Dutch defenders rank quite high. Van Dijk, I've got him, keeping him in the team. Stefan de Vrij, if I was going to I'm going to bring him in. He's the best Dutch defender apart from Van Dijk. Some people might like Ake, but he's got taken off in the 60-odd minute the last two games. You can see his expected minutes is quite down there, 71 minutes. Stefan de Vrij he gets a lot more ball recoveries than Ake, and Dumfries, you could say a similar issue with him. Slight minutes concern, just because he missed one of the games. I do expect him to start, but yeah, de Vrij is the second best Dutch defender. Other than that, yeah, like Koundé, I'm going to keep Walker. I haven't got Koundé in my team, but if I was wildcarding or making more transfers, I'll probably bring him in. Kanji's a good shout, as do the other French defenders. I prefer Koundé or one of the centre halves over Theo Hernandez, just because it's going to be a more lower scoring game. If France were playing and expected to score a lot of goals, Hernandez would be in that team. But because it's going to be lower scoring, I'm going to give the priority to more defensive players who are going to get the ball recoveries over someone like Hernandez, who's got a increased chance of a goal or assist. And in goalkeepers, the most exciting, if you got to playing goalkeepers on different days, that's fine. I would keep them. I wouldn't use a transfer on that. So I've got Pickford and Foster. I'm happy to just stick with them too. Obviously, goalkeepers' scores are a lot lower than outfield players. I've got Costa playing in the first day, so if he gets a 4, I'll definitely stick with a 4. If it's a 3, you would think that a 3 is, you'd definitely change keepers. Looking at the data, it's a 50-50 decision. Because I've got Pickford, if I get a 3 with Costa, I probably would go for Pickford, bring him in. So that is the data. Looking at captaincy. Mentioned before, Mbappe, Van Dijk, the best two captains. Looking at the score distribution, Mbappe is definitely a better pick over Rodri. Just he's got a higher average and a bigger ball percentage. If he doesn't get a good score, bring in Van Dijk, who's a safer pick. He's got a good floor because as I mentioned before, Holland got a great fixture against Turkey. So if I bring up go back to my team. Yeah, we'll just run through it now. I'm not going to make the transfers now, but Ronaldo, happy to get rid of him. Sabitzer, obviously, he's not playing, has to go. And I think we'll get the leak of the Spain team, but I'm assuming that Cucurella will start because I might not have enough money otherwise. Got to buy teams, France, Holland. So I want to bring in Jude. I'm going to bring in Gakpo over to Pi. There's not much in it because of their high ownership and the form. I'm bringing in Gakpo instead of Memphis. And my head's in the way, but I'll move that up. So I won't have the money to go from Carvajal, who's 5.5, to De Vrij, who's 5. So, sorry, to go from Cucurella to De Vrij. I'll bring out Carvajal. Bring in De Vrij. There he is. So right now, those are going to be the 3 transfers that I'm going to make. I think I've covered all options. Yep. If you've got any questions, feel free to reply to the email or a DM on Twitter. Yeah, and I'll reply to everything. Thanks for watching.